Hello and welcome back. Today, I am excited to tell you that we will be delving into the extraordinary event that was Dame Vivienne Westwood's life. After Christmas and just before New Year's Eve 2022, at the sprightly age of 81, the world would grieve at her untimely death. But instead of focusing on the bad or dead, why don't we have a look at her life and how she lived it? She certainly left behind a legacy which massively formed and shaped the world we live in today, touching spheres ranging from the world of fashion, design and art, all the way to environmental politics, the monarchy, and LGBTQ rights among many others. Let's find out what made this quirky queen of anarchy so to the beat of her own drum. This is Vivienne Westwood, the British fashion designer who rose to fame in the 1970s. And 1980s using politics, corsets, and provocation. Did you know that before becoming a world-renowned fashion designer, Westwood had actually gone to study fashion and silversmithing, but quit after just one term, stating that a working-class girl could never succeed in the art world? Perhaps a little bit disheartened, she went to work in a factory before becoming trained as a primary school teacher. It wasn't until later that she began to move into the high fashion world. Small beginnings, eh? Perhaps a reminder to all of us that anything can be achieved, no matter your background. In 1971, Westwood and her then partner Malcolm McLaren opened a clothing store called Let It Rock on the King's Road in Chelsea, London. The store initially sold vintage clothing, but Westwood and McLaren began to sell their own designs as well. The store's name was later changed to Too Fast to Live, Too Young to Die, and then to Sex, as the pair's designs became more provocative and controversial. Quite naughty. Westwood's designs were heavily influenced by the punk movement, and she became known for her use of bold prints, bright colors, and unconventional materials, like pieces of metal for example. She also incorporated elements of historical clothing into her designs, such as corsets and bustles. Her clothing was popular with the punk and new wave crowd, and she began to gain a reputation as one of the most innovative and exciting fashion designers of her time. Westwood's designs were worn by many prominent punk and new wave musicians, such as Susie Sue and the Sex Pistols, and she became known as the Queen of Punk Fashion. She expanded her brand in opening stores in Paris, Milan, and other cities. Vivienne Westwood did not study fashion in a traditional sense. As I said, she did not attend fashion school or receive any formal training in fashion design. Simply, Westwood's early designs were heavily influenced by her own personal style, as well as the punk movement. She began to experiment with different fabrics and techniques and developed her own unique aesthetic. This is how she stood out from the rest. She was different. I mean, she had yellow eyebrows. Remember that although she didn't go to Central St. Martin's of London or study in Milan, Vivienne Westwood is considered a trailblazer in the fashion industry and an inspiration for many fashion designers. Her designs are known for innovation and risk-taking, her raison d'etre, shall we say. Her clothing often featured provocative messages and writing, and utilized unusual materials. One of her most eye-grabbing moments can be said to be when she wore a ripped white t-shirt, featuring the words "destroy" in huge capital letters, with an inverted swastika beneath. Other times, words such as chaos, fracking, and climate would be emblazoned across a dress, bringing attention to topics she wanted to bring to the forefront of people's minds. Punk is what drove her. I think we can all be certain in that. The punk movement, which emerged in the mid-1970s, was characterized by a rejection of mainstream culture and swore by a DIY, or do-it-yourself, ethos. Punk fashion, which was heavily influenced by the punk movement, featured objects and materials which represented this ethos. You might see items such as safety pins and razor blades, and its deliberately transgressive and anti-establishment aesthetic would come out in images of the Queen in Warhol-esque colors and prints. The movement itself was heavily political, and many of its followers were involved in leftist politics and social activism. That's what made it fun. Fashion had for so long been reserved for the high class, highly educated, nepotism-driven rich elite who were able to buy themselves a slot at Milan and Paris fashion shows. Max Mara, move over. Punk fashion was also seen as a form of political expression, its messages being seen as a form of rebellion against the status quo and keeping up with the Joneses. Westwood's designs were often infused with political and social commentary, such as referencing ecological and climate issues. Who cares if this came out in an angry way? Punk was angry. Punk was mean, punk was wild, punk could do whatever it wanted to do. And they did. Westood herself has been vocal about her political views and has been involved in various political and social causes throughout her career, although she didn't only use her sewing needle and her voice to make ripples. In 1992, when the Queen of England awarded her an Order of the British Empire Award for her services to the British fashion industry, she famously went to collect it without any knickers on. Don't ask me how the press managed to find that out. She offered the Prince of Wales the same stunt when arriving for her Daneship in 2006. I'm sure we were not too amused. Westood isn't only famous for going commando in front of our dearly beloved royal family. She also wrote frequently about nuclear weapons, climate change, and human rights on her website, which also featured her fashion news. Go see what she wrote at climaterevolution.co.uk. Both the punk movement and Westood's designs were heavily political and heavily associated with an anti-establishment, anti-consumerism and counterculture ethos, with a focus on using fashion as a way to make social and political statements, promoting awareness and activism. In true working-class girl style, Westood stayed living in her council flat home in Clapham for over 30 years, despite the money I'm sure was pouring in through the windows and doors. Originally from Derbyshire, she moved to London at the rebellious age of 16. God, imagine going to school with Westood. It would have been a riot, pun intended. Now she leaves behind a widower, Andreas Kronthaler, who she was married to for a hearty 9 years. A former student of hers, true to her inner rebel, Kronthaler is an Austrian creative director and partnered many of Westood's designs when she was alive. They say that up until her death, she continued to make art, design clothes, work on her book, and all the things that she loved. May we forever mourn the queen of rock and roll, orange hair and all. She certainly knew how to bow out with a strong exit, just before the explosions and fireworks that marked New Year's Eve. Well, that's it for today. Did you enjoy learning about our savior Dame Vivienne Westood? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more of this yummy material. Bon appetit. See you next time.